Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Now, Chuck, first questions before we answer everyone's questions about the Tower of London. Did you know that the Tower of London was the #1 request that we got?
You told me that.
From our ghoulish fans. You're rather ghoulish people.
Yes, the bloody Tower of London.
Bloody and ghoulish. And we love that about you. We adore that. You're so ghoulish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we can be a little ghoulish too. So, because we had a good time while we were there.
We did indeed. And of course, we'll be showing you all that film footage as you listen to us tell you the bloody tale of the Tower of London. So let's roll some of that tape.
Okay, let's roll
so
it.
what are they looking at here, Chuck? The first thing that they're looking at is that lovely tea that we had before we went in. Do you want to talk a little bit about the tea we had?
It was at a place called Paul.
I remember that,
My father's name, Paul, and it was just lovely. We arrived there, and we decided we definitely wanted a spot of tea before we walked the bloody tower.
Yes, it was a very nice cup of tea, and then we went to the tower, and what were your first impressions energetically when you went to the tower?
Energetically, that's a difficult thing to describe, because it's become such a touristy place now, and you would never know by looking at it all the ghastly things that had taken place at one time. And it was my first visit since 1985, so I didn't really remember it that well, but I was first struck by the cobblestones, the beautiful tower bridge, and then we walked through the entranceway, and it's certainly majestic. Just that's the first thing you see, how majestic it is, and to know the history there, because isn't that where the castle, where the kings and queens lived for,
yes, it was
up until like the
1700s. Yes, it was a residency, and actually we'll show you that King Henry actually lived at the tower, which I think that a lot of people don't realize.
A lot of people didn't. And you were telling me the story of the beefeaters, that I found quite intriguing. I'm sure.
Tell people a little bit about what the beefeaters are.
The beefeaters, well, it's a very elite group of people who have been, most of them were appointed by Queen Elizabeth.
That is correct.
Hand-selected, and it's like the highest of military honors. These are all military people who have reached a point of honor. You know, they
22
years
of excellent service without blemish.
Without blemish. At least one said, at least what he had not been caught doing.
That's what our beefeater said, that he had not yet been caught.
Yes, and we were also surprised to see female beefeaters.
Yes, there were female beefeaters. They got rid of the gender gap quite a while ago. So anyone who has served in the military, male or female, can be a beefeater. And tell the people a little bit about why we think that they were called beefeaters.
Beefeaters, well, because it went back to a time where only royalty or the highest of aristocracy could have access to meat. It was very hard to come by, and because these were the elite, they probably literally got to eat beef, and I think people termed them beefeaters as not necessarily a nice thing. It was people who were angry and jealous of them, but the name stuck. Yes, it's beautiful. There are 35 of them, only 35.
Yes,
didn't you say there used to be hundreds?
50. Yes, they've whittled them down to only 35 active beef eaters today.
And they would you say that they actually work there? They certainly guide, they give tours, help people. But the beautiful thing is they are guaranteed lifetime residency. They all live there in one of the buildings. They're well taken care of. It's a very high honor.
And the church that is hundreds of years old is where they take their mass on Sunday, and that's an active church.
It's just beautiful. Beautiful. And who did you say was buried at the altar? Or was it one of Henry VIII's
Three
wives?
women have been executed. 3 queens have been executed at the Tower of London, and of course, their graves are at the church there at the Tower. And those are in order. I believe it is Anne Boleyn, Catherine Howard, and Lady Jane Grey.
Yes.
And I think my feeling is the vulnerability and the horror. I think that those are the emotions that I felt the most in the Tower, is the vulnerability of, and the horror of somebody having that much power of course, it brings us to think about politics today, that no man should or woman should have that much power over another human being.
Right. No,
Can you talk a little bit about power and any feelings you got about the vulnerabilities of the people that were in the tower?
It was just the unfairness and the absolute cruelty, the harsh cruelty. Like one of the women, wasn't she only about 17 years old when she was executed?
I believe Catherine Howard was 15 when she married and approximately 17 when she was executed for her love affair with Thomas Culpeper, who had been executed 3 months earlier, and his head was placed on a spike outside the tower. And of course, she saw that ghoulish sight.
She had to decomposing on the post.
As she was coming in by a ferry on the barge, she was coming in to face her execution. A 17-year-old girl married off to this, dirty old man, and then because she fell in love, she was executed. And her famous last lines were, obey the king in all things. She, even to the end, she felt the moral responsibility to be loyal to the king. But the rumor is that she also said, today I die as a queen, but if I had my way, I would rather be the wife of Thomas Culpeper. But I think that is questionable whether she actually said that. But that is the rumor, was that she said she would rather have been the wife of Thomas Culpeper.
History sometimes can embellish and distort. We will never know if that's accurate. But wasn't she also given the choice of being either burned at the stake or being beheaded?
That I don't know about. She was, but her head was on the block, and we'll show you that as well. The actual location where the executions took place. She certainly is one of the spirits that is seen roaming the tower. Workmen and various different people have seen and heard Catherine Howard wailing. Lost at the tower, a lost soul. There are many lost souls at the tower.
It was just so barbaric, unspeakable cruelty. And even in the courtyard, there was something almost sanitized about it, the way it's now a tourist attraction. But they had a monument to the spot where the executions actually took place. The crowd would be watching. And which one was it?
Anne
Boleyn, they severed her head with a swift sword strike, and he held up the head. Well, she was saying her final prayers before she was executed, and he allegedly he held up her head, and her eyes and her mouth were still moving.
Yeah, that's true. Actually.
And was she still saying her prayers?
Yes, she was still saying her prayers because you can be conscious for several seconds after the head is severed, because it's still getting some oxygen to the brain.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that story really struck me. But it was kind of almost surrealistic to be in this pristine tourist site and to know there was such bloody, gruesome history there.
And of course, Anne Boleyn was the mother of Queen Elizabeth I. The jokes are that she had daddy issues, Queen Elizabeth. She definitely had daddy and mommy issues. And I believe Anne Boleyn was in her 20s at the time of her execution.
Most of those women were very young. Yeah.
Well, Lady Jane Grey was considered the most dignified when she went to her grave. When she went to her execution, she was only queen for 11 years, and she was sentenced to death by Bloody Mary, actually. Yes, and her husband attempted a Protestant coup, as it were, and for that they were kept in the tower, and she saw her young husband dragged off to be executed, screaming hysterically.
Yes, he was only 19, wasn't he?
He was only 19 years old, and she, of course, watched from the tower, and we'll show you some of the film footage of what that room was. We went up to the room where the ladies had been kept, like Lady Jane Grey, and we could see some of the carvings from many of the people.
Some of them were exquisite, just works of art. But they had lots of time on their hands.
I believe the two princes also went missing in the tower, didn't they? Though we didn't go to that particular tower.
No, we didn't.
But I believe that their bodies were found in the tower years later.
Yeah. But I did take a picture through the window where she was standing as she watched him being executed, being drug off.
Yeah, we'll show you that as well. But when you meditated on the energy there, Was there anything you felt or picked up? For me, I just felt the horror of it all, and it made me think that there are some countries still today with horrific human rights records where women are still being executed for witchcraft, which was one of the charges against Anne Boleyn, by the way.
Yes, that was actually done against a number of women. They were accused of witchcraft. Yeah.
You know, Saudi Arabia still executes women for witchcraft.
I've heard that.
Yes. Afghanistan, these countries still engage in this kind of brutal behavior. So we think that because we in the West have evolved beyond these barbaric abuses against predominantly women, that the rest of the world has evolved as well, but sadly it has not.
No, it has not.
This is the life of women in most parts of the world, where they can be where they are married off as children to powerful men.
Yes.
And if they displease the king, they can be taken out.
Yes.
Yeah. We did not see the feeding of the ravens, but...
Though we saw a raven.
Oh, yes, we saw the ravens.
Some video.
Yeah, we'll show you the ravens, but the story is that when the ravens leave the tower, it will be the end of the world. So we have to make those ravens as happy as possible. And of course, they used to have a designated feeding time of 2 p.m., but I guess they've changed that. I don't know why.
We asked about it, and they just said there was no designated time anymore. And didn't they say, or you told me they fed them liver?
Well, slices of meat and liver, I believe. So it's rather gruesome that a beefeater will come out and feed them. But they used to, when I was there, they would have an announcement, ravens will be fed at 2 p.m., and then they would come out ceremoniously and feed the ravens for fear that if they leave the tower, it will be the end of the world.
I'd like to have seen that.
We did not make it to where the young prince's bodies were found. I think we just simply got too exhausted and I think too horrified.
And we had time constraints also.
We had time constraints. One of the most interesting things about the tower, and we'll show you that, has to do with the importance of Scotland as the official guards for the crown jewels. Can you talk a little bit about Scotland that and the crown jewels?
The crown jewels, well, that of course is probably the main attraction when people go to the Tower of London. Again, I had not seen them in over 40 years, and it's always awesome. You know, just the majesty, the tradition behind the jewels, the scepters, crowns, the royal robes that we saw. It's very interesting. We saw the robes. I guess they've been used numerous times, but the last time was for King Charles.
Really? I thought that one was specifically for him.
It wasn't specific for King Charles.
Well, it's ruined. They can't use it again.
The reason I thought that is because it looked very old.
Really?
Because of all of the detail and craftsmanship, which you just don't find anymore. It looked like something went back a long time.
But you could see it had been oxidized from sweat.
You could see all along the shoulders and the back, it had turned. It was gold, but this part had turned black from just all the perspiration. You know, I'm sure King Charles was very nervous that day, probably sweating profusely, as many of us probably would if we were in that position. It's almost like you've got literally the weight of the world being placed upon you. But we saw that on the robes. But two crowns particularly fascinated me. There was one for Queen Victoria, a very tiny little crown that she had specifically designed for her because she was tired of those heavy things on her head. She was a very petite woman. If I'm not mistaken, she was about 4'10" or so. I saw one of her dresses once. It looked like something made for a little girl. She was tiny.
Wow.
So this was a little crown, and I'd seen it in many photographs, but to actually get up close to it and see all the detail and all the little tiny jewels, exquisite. And the thing that moved me probably more than anything was seeing Queen Elizabeth's crown. You remember from the funeral, the crown placed on top of her coffin as it was being taken by a horse-drawn carriage. You could get up close to it behind the glass. And
we weren't allowed to photograph it.
No photography, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we will be able to show you the Scottish Guard, who has historically, since I think the time of, James the First, have been the official guardians of the jewels.
Yeah, we got to see the changing of the guards. Yeah, they take it very, very seriously. Lots of pageantry, ceremony, but I'm sure those jewels are literally priceless.
You know what I thought was fascinating was the brutality that the queens were executed. they were executed with such brutality. But when you go into the church at the Tower, you see at the altar under the large candle, that is where Anne Boleyn is buried.
Yes.
And to her right, you have the other two queens,
Yes.
which are Lady Jane Grey and Catherine Howard. The dignity and the respect they are shown because they were queens, even if they had been executed.
But yet the brutality of
Yes.
how they died.
And I think that it goes back to things we've heard today about the royal family, that they, despite all the majesty and all the pomp, it really is a gilded cage, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah, we were talking about that, how they're basically trapped. They're trapped. Their lives are not their own. Queen Elizabeth once said, "I have a job where I will never be allowed to retire." And she didn't. She was working up till 2 days before she died, literally at the age of 96. Now that's dedication and duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for hanging with us
Thank you.
and coming with us to the Tower of London. We will continue our journey forward, showing you these amazing videos. Right now, we are in beautiful Cardiff.
Oh, it's exquisite.
We're staying at a lovely hotel, and we will be taking film footage of the Castle of Cardiff.
I'm looking forward.
I think it's going to be quite lovely. And we are grateful that you could join
Thank you
us
very
on this
much.
journey. Thank you, everyone.
We
Thank you
appreciate
again
you
for your
very much.
support of the channel, and we'll see you again soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.